my friends! Today we're going to do something a little bit different and have a brief discussion on breathing for singing. This is a topic I frequently get asked about, and I imagine that many of you watching this have heard some information about how you're supposed to be breathing the right way to sing. But it's also pretty likely that you've received conflicting or confusing information about breathing for singing along the way. I'll do my best to sort out as much as possible in the very short time we'll have here together in this video. As always, I'm here to offer information, but really nothing can replace the one-on-one attention of a competent vocal coach. Also, please make sure to check out my mobile app Vocal Warmups with Kathleen so you can have commercial-free and offline access to professionally curated vocal warm-ups and exercises. Information about that is below. Now, as we go along today, I'll do my best to shed light on some of the common misconceptions about breathing and breathing for singing. Our bodies are designed to keep us alive, not necessarily for singing. So even though we've been breathing for our whole lives, sometimes we develop habits that don't lead to the most efficient ways to breathe for singing. Put very simply, we want to have a coordinated airflow, both in and out. That is the best use of our energetic output and supports all other aspects of singing like alignment, phonation, and resonance. If I were to distill all information about breathing for singing into just a few short statements, it would be stay aligned and fairly relaxed and allow the middle of the body to do the most work in a natural way. When we breathe in, the belly area or abdomen expands, and when we exhale, the center of the body gets smaller and contracts. If you watch sleeping babies or animals breathing, it's a pretty impressive show of natural breathing. See how low in the body the movement is? I will also link my absolute favorite video that shows breathing for singing. These opera singers with their shirts off really show what moves and what doesn't. Please check that out. You may have heard of breathing for singing referred to as diaphragmatic breathing or breathing from the diaphragm, but most vocal pedagogues don't actually use that phrase anymore because, number one, your diaphragm moves when you breathe, just in general, it does that. And number two, there are a lot more muscles involved in this type of breathing for singing and natural breathing. And number three, the diaphragm itself is actually rather passive during the exhalation phase of singing. We have a lot of other muscles that interact with the diaphragm, and those are the ones that we want to focus on. They are the ones that we're most conscious of and the ones that we have the most control over. There are also a lot of different schools of breathing. I'm not kidding. High chest breathing and back breathing and all sorts of things, Germanic and Italian. One of the biggest issues is that we can't really do all of those at once, so we kind of have to pick one and stick with it. I advocate for a rather natural breath, but optimized for singing. It will be more vigorous and a bit more extended and deliberate than breathing for speaking, but that said, it's very important that we stay relaxed and don't over-breathe. As always, it's good to find what works for you. The absolute fastest way that I can teach you how to breathe is to ask you to lie down on your back in a comfortable position with your knees slightly bent or propped. If you can do that now, I'd like to invite you to do so. If you can't do that right now, come on back to this part of the video a bit later. You can definitely experiment with this breathing however you are right now. I'll ask you to place a hand or two over your belly button and relax. I'd like you to breathe as if you were about to fall asleep. Your job right now is just to notice your body. What is moving? What isn't moving? Where is there tension? Can you release any of that tension? What feels relaxed? What does it feel like to be perfectly aligned? Take a full, slow breath in and sigh out. Do this a few times. And again, notice what's moving and what isn't, what engages and what relaxes. Go ahead and take another breath in, but this time hold it, just for a moment. Now exhale. We don't want to hold our breath at any point while we're singing. But this exercise allows us to notice the moment that the muscles transition from an inhalation to an exhalation, from breathing in to breathing out. We can call these three parts of the breath inhalation, suspension, and exhalation. But we want to consider the suspension more of a coordination point, more of a turning around point than an extended moment of time to be held. Next, let's connect these natural breathing mechanics to sound. Say ha, ha, ha rather vigorously. Ha, ha, ha. Now, if you're doing this correctly, the abdominal muscles tighten and pull in when you say ha. This also happens naturally when we cough or when we sneeze or when we shout. Once we have that coordination, let's start with an H sound and put a sustained E after it. So we'll have a little extra hook at the beginning of the breath, and we can sing or say he, or he. Now I'm exaggerating the onset slightly, the movement where I go from inhalation to exhalation. So I'm doing he. This is so I can really feel the coordination and notice what's moving. At this point, if you're lying down, I would encourage you to come to a sitting position and replicate everything we just did, starting with just noticing the breath and ending with the ha, ha, and the he. Once you've done that, if you stand when you sing, move into that standing position and repeat it again. Go ahead and pause here if you'd like to try all of that. Once we are in our final singing position, we want to double check a few things. Check for alignment, letting the skeleton be balanced. Make sure that the front of the body is open but relaxed. And finally, make sure that you are not pulling in the belly button. If you've taken dance or gymnastics or Pilates or been in the military or you've just lived in a world that tells us to suck in our gut, that is the opposite of our neutral singing position. Make friends with your belly and allow it to relax, especially on the inhalation. It needs to expand. I've heard some really weird things as a singer about breathing, most of which have one or two good aspects, but cause problems in other areas. Some of those include pinch a penny. This will engage lots of muscles, which can certainly add energy to the sound, but it can also add a lot of tension. Not to mention our lungs are pretty far away from our butt cheeks. Another one is to use your pelvic floor muscles or breathe through your hoo-ha. Again, that's pretty far away from the breathing apparatus and the lungs. This can encourage singers to move your attention to a lower place in your body, making sure that we're relaxing and expanding those abdominal muscles, as well as to engage supportive muscles in the lower abdomen, and it can build body awareness. The downside, again, is that it's not anatomically correct, and it can add tension where we don't need it. When you are done with this video, I would recommend taking a listen to my exercises for efficient singing. I will link one of those at the end of this video as well as below. That next step brings use of air into sound. But first, a couple of words about what you may have heard called support or breath support. This is simply a coordination of airflow to vocal demands. It's how much air is coming up and how much air we need. It is subglottal pressure to supraglottal pressure. This coordination of airflow to vocal demands might be range or volume or resonance. These demands interact with registration, chest voice, head voice, etc. We want the right amount of air and the right velocity of air. If air is escaping the vocal folds like he, that's really more of what's happening above the breathing apparatus. It also could be because we're using too much air for our personal coordination and strength. But when we hear the word support, it often naturally engages lots of muscles throughout the body to search for this balance. I'm not so much against the use of the word support, I just think it's a little bit nebulous and hard to understand. I advocate for singing to be more about coordination than strength. Do we often need to strengthen our muscles? Yes, absolutely. But form and technique will ensure that we are doing that correctly. I would encourage you this week to spend more time just noticing your breathing, especially while lying down. Practice it while lying down, then try it sitting, and then standing if that works for you. In each position, see if you can replicate the open and natural coordination of breathing from lying down to sitting to standing. Thanks so much for watching and for your support of my channel here, as well as my mobile app in both iTunes and Google Play. I will see you next time.